Hi, you're listening to She Shield, your one-stop pod for all topics personal safety. I'm your host, Sofia, and my goal is to help educate men and women on concealed carry, martial arts, and alike topics. Today, we have Byron Rodgers of the Bravo Research Group on the podcast. I met Byron at SHOT Show and was just taken by everything he does. So I would love for you, Byron, to go ahead and just introduce yourself to the listeners.
Boom! What's up, y'all? Byron Rodgers here. So I've been pretty busy. I do a number of different things, a few different brands. So they face two directions. Bravo Research Group is my boutique private security company. We do high-end security. We'll put teams and strategies around high net worth individuals, VIPs, and corporate structures. We also do some humanitarian stuff. And we've been operational in about 60 different countries, more than 60 countries, but it gets unbelievable after a few minutes. But nonetheless, we're out here in Southern California, and it's an honor to do what we do. I'm a protector by nature and by trade. So, I've always been a protector, background in the United States Marine Corps. Got into private security at 21, and I've been doing it on an international level ever since. Then we get into the Protector Nation, which is my everyone-facing, civilian-facing protector brand. We have once a year annual protector symposiums where a few hundred protectors, law enforcement, military, civilians, moms, dads, whoever has the protection DNA come together, and we do interdisciplinary deep dive for a weekend. And we have a lot of the top instructors in the industry that you probably know about come out, and it's awesome. That's also supported and driven by the first social media platform for protectors, where you can come on, make your platform, network, train with people, get to know the community, download our Protector Symposium library, digital library, which is huge on protection strategies and tactics. And then I have my school, the League of Executive Protection Specialists, where I teach people, civilians, law enforcement, military, people that want to get into the high end of the private security, the private sector, private security game, the executive protection agents, bodyguards, and do a number of different things at a high level. I teach them how to get into this industry, regardless of background. We've been very successful. We got about 400 students going strong, and we're just simply changing the face of the private security industry. And we do our careers together. I do a lot of follow-on training after you come through the courses, and I make sure that you succeed if you're a good person. Those are kind of the three top ones. I've written a book. I'm a published author, Finding Meaning After the Military. Got a master's in psychology, counseling and psychology, and forensic psychology, and lots of other stuff. But that's kind of the game right now, and it's an honor to be here. I love your mission. I love what you're doing with this podcast, and there's so much more I could say, but this is totally on brand and in alignment with who I am and how I want to serve the world. So thank you.
Thank you. That is all so wonderful. I'm absolutely just taken back by everything you do. And I know you're a busy guy, so thank you for taking your time to come on. And as you know, this podcast is not just for women. She Shield is, called that because it was originally just told from my perspective as a woman and a friend of mine. So it pertains to absolutely everyone and anyone who cares about their personal safety. So yeah, that's incredible. So many different directions I want to go from what you just said. But I guess to start out, it seems you have some awesome experience with podcasting. So how did that get started? How does that play into what you do on a daily basis?
Yeah. So in my industry, my level of private security, executive protection, which is 1% of the private security industry, which is blowing up, by the way. It's the best time to get into this part of the industry. Everything was gray. Everything was all about what? We're silent professionals. We don't talk about what we do. And so no one really knew about it. Like, if you got into the game, it was because you knew a guy who was on a detail, who was serving a family or a corporation. And it was really kind of whispery, and there was no information. So, like I said, by the grace of God, literally, that's a whole story. I ended up on one of the biggest and most highly traveled executive protection details in the United States. We hit those 60 countries in the first year. I worked for that client for 7 years. And then I started chasing the pager, basically doing domestic security contracting for multiple security companies in my 5, 6, 7, 8 companies in my area. and all over the United States. And that's when I got experience with every client demographic that is in our industry. And then after that, I was like, dude, I want to do a podcast. And like my boys were like, bro, don't do a podcast. Like no one's ever going to hire you. You're already black. Like, what are you doing? No. I have a sense of humor in military. So like we didn't,
I
we
love
don't
it.
trip. So yeah, like they're like, dude, you're already like don't complicate things by being the guy, like the Navy SEAL that wrote the first book. Like, come on, bro. And I'm not Navy SEAL, by the way. I'm Marine Corps. But anyway, so
Gotcha.
I then am like, dude, I'm going to do a podcast. And they're like, no. And I'm like, we're not CIA. Like, it's just not that. It's serious, but it's not like I'm going to give up trade secrets here, like. So I end up doing the podcast. There's no one else in the space. And it explodes because there's a vacuum and there's a need for information on how to do this work competently. And now I've created the biggest body of video content, real world video content on what we do in existence on the planet on my YouTube channel. And it's for free. You can go and you can listen to that, what men are doing around the world, men and women are doing around the world to protect people at the highest levels. You can implement those into your life, which is like super dope. And then the Protect Your Nation podcast was just like, hey, look, like there's so many things and people and conversations and topics that I'm a civilian that protects civilians, that should be in the civilian spectrum. I want to interview this Navy SEAL or this Delta Force dude who's not like in my industry. And I want to talk about like moms and dads protecting their kids, so the Protect Your Nation one just kind of got in alignment with that. It's like, okay, this isn't industry facing, but this is just relevant, and so that's kind of the difference between, and sometimes I air episodes on both, depending on how pertinent they are, but that's how I got into podcasting. And it's been super dope. That's a word I like to use to describe it.
Absolutely.
It drives a lot of my business.
And how do you go about choosing your guest speakers and your topics?
And then real quick, just for a little bit more context,
Please.
It drives a lot of my business. My mission is to make the world a safer place by helping good people to be more dangerous, more willing, capable, and prepared. It's not just enough to be good and morally superior or whatever. I believe that who wins on this planet in the room, in the environment, is whoever's most formidable, right? We don't see angels like zip lining in and kicking in windows and stopping rapes and murders. Now, you don't see that. What you see is an active shooter running around shooting people until a good person with a gun enters that environment and is actually formidable enough to stop them, right? So my mission in life is to multiply protectors on this planet with everything that I've learned through combat, through getting blown up 5 times, getting hit by 5 IEDs in Iraq, from doing executive protection operations all over the world for my entire adult life. Like my mission is to get those skills, civilians protected civilians professionally, get those skills to everyday people. And what people don't realize is it's not so much about being physically potent, being a 40-pound combatant. It's really 99% of it has to do with soft skills. It has to do with the way you think, you move, and you plan as you move through the world, and avoiding using all the hard skills that people like to train because it's sexy, right? So that's kind of the context for me. But in terms of how I pick my guests, a number of different things. Because I have the luxury of experience with combat and with protection, I have the lens to assess people in terms of their effectiveness and the quality of their tactics and their brand and things like that. It's kind of it makes it easy. I can look at someone's brand and be like, like this guy's got something that really needs to get out there, and I share my platform with him. And then also everything I do is guided by, the grace of God and the Holy Spirit, because that's my cheat code for life. Like I've been able to create and exist at a level of life above my mental and physical capabilities as a result of that. So a lot of that spiritual fitness also helps me discern who I should expose my demographic to and cross-pollinate with.
That's incredible. I'm excited to listen to your podcasts, both of them, after this. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. And for anyone listening who's interested in that, you can go to the show notes. I'll have everything linked there. Yeah, amazing. And thank you for explaining what soft skills are. I know that's kind of random, but I had someone come on, it's probably one of my first guest speakers, and he kept talking about soft skills versus hard skills. And I was like, what the hell are we talking about? It took me like a while to figure it out, and I didn't want to interrupt them. Right. Yes. So it took me a second, but you're absolutely right. That is so important. I don't feel like it gets talked about enough. So I'm glad we're here talking about
Yeah.
it. Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I can just real quick, just in case
please
anyone
do.
else is wondering, soft skills is, these are all the different, people talk about situational awareness. Like you need situational awareness. And like, yeah, you do, but like, how is that relevant to your life, right?
Mhm.
Context, where are you going? What are you doing? What's the risk level? Tactical positioning, where are you in the world? Rolling risk assessment, what's the risk? Posture, is it elevating? Has it just elevated because this individual military age male walked in? Being able to execute on those things, those are kind of the three main, and then have a plan. Those are like 3 to 4 main things I talk about when it comes to situational awareness. The situational awareness is like a huge soft skill. Your social dynamics, huge soft skill. Your ability to plan, huge soft skills. Soft skills are the ones that don't require physical strength, but the way you move and place yourself and perceive your environment is going to do everything to help you avoid, detour, and move through dynamic, kinetic, or violent encounter. Or like you avoid 90% of them if you're good at these soft skills. You don't even have to get jacked and tan, even though you should be, right? And the other thing is the hard skills, right? The shooting, the fighting, the medical. I include medical in that. The driving, right? Medical, stop the bleed, get in there, do what needs to be done to save a life, right? These are your hard skills, and nothing's good, nothing's bad. Everything just is a tool for us to use. And if we're good people, we'll use it for good things. And the converse is also true. So yeah, that's how I talk about soft skills and hard skills. Soft skills do 80-90% of it, but you better have the hard skills in case you have to be a surgeon with a chainsaw in a few seconds of your life.
It's a great way. It's a great way to explain it. Absolutely. There is a lot of emphasis from what I've seen at least on the hard skills. And you're right, it does look sexy. Soft skills take a little bit more I guess discussion and um, there aren't usually guns drawn during that portion. So people tend to I think gravitate towards the hard skills. But um it's podcasts like
Yeah.
this and yours that talk about the important part. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, but you're 100% on point. And the soft skills, like being a soft skill Jedi, is like where it's at for me. Like, yeah, I can bring to bear a tremendous amount of force and things that can extinguish most things, not all. Like, and you never know, right? There's a lot of chance of violence. We avoid it at all costs, really, at most costs. But the reality is, like, I had a guy in a road rage incident that I talk about sometimes where, I cut a dude off because I needed to make a turn. He flies up next to me and, he's cussing at me. He's yelling at me. We're in Orange County, California. Okay. So, like, you look at me, you look at him, you're wondering if he's lost his mind. Like, in all genuineness, in all humility, right? Like, I can go get choked out in all the dojos in America. I'm not like that BA. I'm just saying, me and this guy, though, is kind of like,
Yeah.
eh. So, I look at him and I'm me. I've been training to be extremely effective at violence for my whole life, right? So I'm looking at him and of course I'm carrying and I'm so ready, but I just am like, you know what? He's rolling his window down, he's cussing, and I'm just like, hey man, I'm sorry. Sorry, bro. I shouldn't have cut you off. Like, we're in Orange County. Let's just have a beautiful day, man. My bad. And he's like, okay. And it's like in that moment, like is
Yeah.
that humility? Yeah, maybe, but also it's like soft skill Jedi, man. Like
Yeah.
I'm controlling, I'm doing everything I can to put input things into this situation that's going to have a peaceful outcome, and that's my goal. You're in an environment with me. I've already like socially engineered an environment where everyone thinks of me as the good guy. I've already positioned myself in a place where I have visual mastery of my environment. I have a tactical advantage on you. I already know where all my weapons are. I know where all my exits and my entrances are. I already have a plan, and I've been assessing you probably when I saw you in the windows before you hit the door jam. So, like, we're talking soft skills. I'm like miles left of bang to most people in my environment. And that's the soft skill Jedi stuff that I talk about that I think civilians, everyone needs to pay attention to, because soft skills make you so much more formidable, whether it's verbal or whether it's just your perception, the way you move.
I love that so much. That needs to be on a t-shirt. Like, you have the hashtag
Soft
human
skills
weapon. Yeah, hashtag
Jedi.
soft skill Jedi.
Oh, this is, who is this, man? Where's my guy, man? This is Coach the spear technique.
Yeah.
Tony Blauer. He came to one of our
Okay.
events. He came to one of our protector symposiums, and he gave me this shirt, which I absolutely love.
That's
That's
amazing.
pretty cool.
Absolutely. Love a good shirt. I feel like I've heard of him before. He sounds really familiar.
Sure. Yeah, he's been around for a long time. Very intelligent, very cerebral. I can get you connected. You can have on your
Oh,
podcast, probably. I'm
I would
sure he'd
love
love to
that.
do it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Yes,
he's one of the
please.
greats.
Absolutely. And it's funny you say that. I'm thinking about the first time I met you. I think it was the 511 party. So I'm like thinking
Shot
about,
show.
yeah, SHOT Show. And um that makes total sense. You were really good at holding a conversation, but I could tell you were being uber observant. And you definitely have this calming like aura about you. So everything you're saying, I'm like
Thank,
piecing together from even our just short interactions in person. So that's really
thank you.
cool. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Um,
no, there's a lot going on in that room. So,
yes. Oh my God, it was so busy,
taking it
and I was
all
just
in,
really
and you got to
happy.
make it look. The hugest thing is like one of the big components is too is keeping the stress low so that the social interactions are still valuable and you're not raising the stress level of others in your environment. But with situational awareness, it can be overwhelming initially to people who are not. I'm lucky. I got blown up 5 times in Iraq, so I have hypervigilance. Someone who grew up in the hood probably also has a certain degree of hypervigilance, right? But if you can do it in a way that it doesn't negatively impact other people in your environment who aren't on that same level, you'll get less crap for it and it'll be more palatable to folks. And so a lot of what we do as professionals and then just as people who are paying it, because you're going to notice when you're like, hey, you go to dinner and you're like, I'm going to sit here so I can face the door. You'll train people you go out with. My wife already knows. Like anyone I go out with, they're like, give Byron the seat. Like, no, like the
That's
waiter will
awesome.
take us to a table and she'll be like, let's just go over there in the corner. That one's probably better. And I don't even have to say anything. I don't even have to say anything,
That's great.
but yeah, so it's good to hear that, you still experienced a high quality conversation and my vibe was still, good and genuine and pure and present for you for that. Cause that's always my goal.
Absolutely. Yeah, it does take a certain amount of skill to be able to like be calm and be observant and be present. I'm definitely still in a place where I get really anxious and with big crowds because I'm still kind of refining that skill, and training that muscle.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. It's like driving. You first get in the car, you have to shift, you're looking through mirrors, you're like, oh my gosh, like everyone does this, like, oh my goodness, and then like
Yeah,
a
that's
few
true.
years go by and you're like brushing your teeth and sending a text message while you're like changing lanes, like, you know what I mean? So it just,
Yeah.
as you do it, then it just becomes second nature. Then you never really, it's in that level of subconsciousness, not unconscious, but it's
Yeah.
subconscious almost that you're already in the right position. You've already been paying attention to who's walking in and out. You've already been kind of running rolling risk assessments on folks. And, it's just built into your life like everything else is. And that's where you want to get to, so that when something happens, you've already considered what you would do. And now you're able to be present for a conversation, because you already have all these cheat codes in place that make it so like, all right, cool. Like I can actually focus now because I know I have all these things positioned already, so that's good. That's how it
Absolutely.
is. It's overwhelming in the beginning. Then it becomes like second nature, like everything.
Absolutely. I appreciate you sharing that for sure. So there's hope for anyone listening and that experiences that as well. So I'd like to switch gears a little bit and ask what your combative training timeline is, and like when did it start? Where did it start?
Yeah. Combative training time. This is cool. So growing up, lots of martial arts and things like that. My father's a martial artist.
Oh,
Beat me up a lot, sent me to a lot of dojos and different things like that. Then I got into really, I think that what should also be mentioned is just being acquainted with the physical. Like I played a lot of football, played for a 6A school, started lifting weights. I started lifting weights probably when I was in eighth grade, not probably when I
wow.
was in eighth grade. And then
Yeah.
got into the Marine Corps, lifting, lifting weights and playing football all through high school, 6A, Ironman, all that stuff, took state, and then got into the Marine Corps. And that's really where, um, growing up, I knew I was a warrior and I always was like, you know, talking to my Heavenly Father, like, how could I be like a good warrior, like a warrior for good? Like, and then all the like dudes at my church were like, Jesus is my homeboy. And like, they were just too sweet and soft and gentle for me to really be like, this is the type of man I want to be.
Yeah.
My father is an extremely intense, like, he's like, still, like, he's like if Tony Montana and like Donald Trump like had like like both of them, like that's how he is. Like, I still probably couldn't beat him up. I'd still probably have to shoot him, but he got shot at point blank range with a shotgun and survived and like
Wow.
died a few times and came back, so like he's just that guy, very successful businessman,
Yeah.
like, so I grew up in this kind of warrior way. And then the
Yeah.
Marine Corps was like, for me, I was like, yo, I want to, like, one, I want to settle my masculinity. Two, there's nothing I could do on the planet that would get my dad's respect other than like go straight to war, So I went, and
Wow.
that's really where I learned a whole lot. And then I actually went into actual combat, and that was so many things that we could take a whole other podcast about, but taught me some amazing things about myself. And had my Phoenix moment when I, got blown up for the last time and had an out of body experience and prayed and got to come back by the grace of God and talk to Jesus about that. And then I got out and started doing private security big time, a lot. 60 countries in 1 year. That's all you're doing, basically. We'd come back to the United States. I'd go to my little cleaner and like bribe them / hold everyone hostage and be like, you're going to wash all my suits in the next hour and a half because I have to get back on a private jet. like literally. And then, I took like a little break and just was working, and then I got done and I started to kind of be like, well, a civilian buddy invited me to a competitive shooting match. And I was like, dude, I've been to war twice, bro. Like, I was like, I'm a United States Marine, bro. Like, do you even know who I am? I was like, I'm going to a stupid little shooting match. And then he was like, and it's crazy because I see guys now in the private security industry, when they're going to come on one of my teams, you got to pass an NDOC. Like, you got to prove that you can do the thing. And they have the same attitude, right? So then, like, I go to this shooting match or whatever, and sure enough, man, like, there's like Claudia Vadonis, if you know, you know. But anyways, she's like 17 or something when I was there, and she's just like murdering everyone's face, shooting faster than everybody. And like, I just am like sitting here and I'm just like with my just horrible, just doing terrible. And I'm like, dude, you're not going to Valhalla, bro. You can't figure out, like, this can't be how it is. Like, you're just killing yourself. So then, I'm like, literally, I get done with that match and I'm like, just say the word and I'll take my own life in my head. And then at that point, I woke back up and was like, hey, bro, like, the Marine Corps was like years ago, like, you need to get up on your game. So then I started getting back into training, and then I started getting back into competitive shooting and going to every tactical course I could, and really started training again heavy. I've gone in and out of hand stuff. I've gone in and out of jiu-jitsu. I've gone in and out of Muay Thai. I've gone in and out of different things, because my workload's been really heavy. So I have enough of a background in that. I did a lot of bouncing too on the West Coast and on the East Coast. I built my career up from the door as a bouncer into the higher levels of private security 2 times on each coast. And both times I started as a bouncer. So got a lot of kind of real world fighting in there. And then, now, I've been so fortunate that I get, flown out to a lot of the top trainings kind of in the world to do tactical reviews and things like that. So,
Wow.
which was always the plan, by the way. When I started
Yeah.
recording myself doing my shooting comps, I always told the boys, I was like, I'm going to get flown out to do training with all the top trainers, and I'm going to record it, and it's going to be awesome. And they're like, dude, you suck at this. Like, it's never going to happen. And I still am like, I'm a B-class shooter. Like, I'm still like, good,
He's great.
But I built the brand. So that's what happens now. And now I get to invite all these awesome guys to come to my symposium just so I can train with them, basically. So
That's incredible.
yeah, man. And then always a student. You come to my event, I'm going to be next to you, training next to you. Unless you're at my EP school where I'm teaching you executive protection. I set those things up so I can train. So, you might choke me out. You might outshoot me. You might catch me in the shoot house. Maybe. But yeah, man, I love getting in there, My brand's not about perfection. My brand is about effort and progress. My brand is about progress. So you can go to videos I dropped 10 years ago and you can see the progression. That's always been the goal. I want to show you what one imperfect man can do if he constantly sacrifices weaker versions of himself by the grace of God on the altar of progress over the course of a lifetime.
Wow. That's incredible. Yeah, I like that you still keep your videos up. I tend to keep my old videos up unless I say something just outright wrong, and I don't want anyone to, a lot of people do not read the caption.
The
So
trolls, man. Yeah, man.
yeah, and even if I write, please read the caption, they still won't read it, and then they'll take that at face value. So some things that are just wrong I've taken
Yeah.
down, but I like that you keep that up to show progression. And yeah, that's lovely. Um, there was something you said that I wanted to touch on. Sorry, the table's cracking me up. For those of you who aren't watching this, Byron was actually standing for that first part. So we just lowered the table and we're both sitting now. So um, okay, yes, that's why I was distracted. Okay, so what I wanted to ask you, as far as what types of training you recommend to your private security students, what do you tell them, or do they normally come in with a pretty like extensive background,
Private security students, um,
or just
or well,
honestly
just
any?
protectors.
Yes,
Yeah.
protect.
When it comes to training, I really harp on the soft skills. So one of the biggest compliments I got at a protector symposium where I had one of the top private security company owners in the world come up to me and say, "Hey man, this was amazing. I learned a whole lot. I've never seen anything like this." And then I had a 110-pound mom come up to me and was like, "Oh my gosh, this was amazing. I learned so much. I've never like this changed my life." Then I had like a ultra gray dude who couldn't tell me what his background was or what he does for a living. Be like, "Dude, this was awesome, bro. Like, this was really good training." So um, that is kind of what I like to do, and the formula generally is, especially for the symposium this Friday, it's all soft skills. Every single SME that we have at the event teaches you soft skills and the theory behind what what you're gonna actually go out and do on Saturday and Sunday. And so, social dynamics, de-escalation, a whole bunch of situational awareness. This is a very important one that people pass up. Behavioral profiling, left of bang audiobooks stuff. All right. Yusuf Badu, one of the guys I have on my platform that I love referring people to understand behavioral profiling, like proxemics, all that stuff, and understanding how to live a safer pattern of life. So my whole that whole content category that I have that's free online, over 100 and some odd videos of tactical protection reviews, where I look at real world violence, something that has happened, and then we go ahead and we dig into the skills necessary to navigate that most effectively, right? And a lot of the times you see the same things, soft skills, how they would have helped, no matter how many hours you have on the mats, right? And then as we get into the more hard skills, then another lesser focused on, like hard skill you need is medical. Like if I'm running around with a gun, I need to know how to plug holes. I need to write that police report before it happens, because there's going to be another fight after the fight, right? So having your medical training, if you're looking at a situation or a life where you could end up in a violent encounter or just a car accident, you should understand medical. That's like the hard skill you have the highest probability of needing to implement is probably your medical. And then above medical comes driving. What are we doing all the time? Every single day, all over the world. I've been in 2 situations where I've had to make contact with a vehicle and I've had to go car to car. And both of those were actually in my civilian life. And so being able to understand how to pit, counter pit, vehicle dynamics, which essentially is being able to get 80% of that vehicle's capabilities, getting it to perform at least at 80%. Most people never take it above a 40, 50, 60%, but being able to really push any vehicle that you're in order to save your life. Understanding like when you're actually looking at flipping the vehicle or rolling the vehicle, when where to touch another vehicle if you have to make contact. This starts getting into contact driving. So understanding those things, understanding how to ram through a barricade, where to touch a vehicle if it's blocking you, if you need to push it out of the way, where to position your vehicle in traffic. So we get into we get into car fighting and vehicle dynamics, right? So soft skills, medical, vehicles, and then we start to get into combatives. When it comes to hand-to-hand combatives, I say, honestly, choose one that you're good at and get good at it. The principles that I like you to consider as you look at these things is, if you can avoid being on the floor, don't be on the floor. If you're on the floor, you better know how to fight on the floor. You need to be physical. You need to be able to take a punch to the face without falling apart, or without being so afraid that if you get slammed or take a punch to the face, that you're going to lose. So then you don't fight, or you just are not inoculated to that level of stress. One of the principles from Krav Maga that I love, which is a very powerful principle for combat, which is achieve the highest level of violence the quickest. And that is the attacker principle we have in the Marine Corps. That is the principle that could change the dynamic. They grab you, they put your hands on you, and you explode into screaming and stabbing them in the face with the pen that you had in your hand, or just striking them in the right spots. Like, this is how you change the dynamic. They're like, wrong target, like, right? So understanding those things when it comes to hand-to-hand combatants, pick one, master it. Okay, pick one and master it. And when I say pick one, I mean pick something like Krav Maga, Jiu-Jitsu, or striking. Like judo, slamming someone into the ground, another amazing martial art. I don't believe that there's a superior martial art. I do believe there are superior fighters who are learned in these martial arts, right? But in the reality of fighting, there's a lot of chance. I posted a video the other day of a jiu-jitsu guy who takes someone to the floor and they get stabbed to death. So understanding context is huge with that. And then obviously firearms, the modern day, and this is one of the things that I fault a lot of private security guys for, a lot of military guys for, is when they come to our indoc and they're like, yeah, I'm into war and I'm special forces, this, that, and the next thing, and blah, blah, blah. And then they can't pass a basic law enforcement qual, or a basic military pistol qual, or the CCW quals and things like that. These are quals. These are not performance drills. These are quals. So baseline performance required to be able to be in these entities, right? So you need to become proficient with a handgun, because the handgun is the ultimate equalizer, regardless of your physical potency, regardless of your age, regardless of your gender and your color and all the things they want you to get upset about. You need to understand how to use a pistol, because that is the modern day katana, right? So a lot of military guys don't, because we train rifles in the military, right? So learn how to use firearms, and most importantly, learn how to use a pistol. And that's about how I look at combatives for protectors. But the most important ones, in my opinion, that'll really do the most for you is understanding the soft skills, and then medical and driving through combatives up into firearms, but you need all of these. You need all of these when you need a parachute, all you need is a parachute. When you're walking from your office to your car and you're in what we call a transitional space, which is where 80% of attacks happen, you might need a gun. You could do everything right. You could know, I'm going into transitional space. I need to be more vigilant. I'm looking out the windows first. I don't see anybody. I'm walking to my car. I got another guy in my office to walk me to my car because of the context of where I'm doing it and what time I'm doing it. And I still got jumped by 6 dudes who were hiding around the corner. And now I legitimately need to bring in force multipliers. And the thing about these, your training and your force multipliers, is understanding that it's all about you. Personal protection is about you. So I can play games in many situations with a guy and talk and because I'm a 240 pound dude who's been training to use the tool of violence to save lives my entire life. However, you might need to implement your force multiplier way quicker, play way less games, the disparity of force, and your actual options as that person, that other human or group of human gets closer to you. So you have to take a real serious assessment of yourself and understand when and what you need to be able to do and when you need to implement it in the force continuum.
Wow. Sorry, I'm
Thank you.
just like
It make me feel smart. I love it.
oh, for real, that was so well said. I feel like I've been waiting for
Thank
someone to
you.
come on and say all of that exactly that way. Um, I think your perspective on getting good at one thing is interesting. I'd like to kind of look into that a little bit more with you. So, do you kind of mean pick one and also have a hand kind of in all of the others in case, for example, if you're really great at Muay Thai and you can strike with your fists and your elbows really well because of it, and also their awesome kicks.
Yeah.
But you get taken to the ground. Um, would you agree that like having a hand in each of those would
So
be good?
yeah, I guess to clean that up, I would say become a physically formidable person. I would prescribe something like MMA because you're going to learn. They're gonna try to build you up in all these different areas.
Yeah.
They're gonna try to build you up in all these different areas simultaneously. But like also conversely, if you've been to become a physically formidable person, if you've been training Muay Thai your entire life and like I might not have knockout power because I'm a chick with like my upper body, but if I catch this dude with this kick, like it's gonna be lights out. And you do that kick 100,000 times, and that's your kill shot, and you get good enough to execute on that, then good. But what I really mean is become a physically formidable person based on your physical parameters and your temperament. And, I would prescribe MMA because it's got a little bit of everything in it. But I still wouldn't want to discourage a person who's like, I've been just training boxing. But I will also make a note in there for
Mhm.
women that says your lower body is your power center. So don't be wooed in by like Taibo and all these things, to where you think you're gonna knock some dude out. You know what I mean? Like jujitsu is probably more appropriate. Krav Maga because of the principles that they use in terms of using things in your environment and the principles of violence, overwhelming violence, and different things like that. That might be more appropriate for you. But you've also got to watch out because so many things are consumer driven right now, and you
Mhm.
can very well in Krav find yourself in a dojo that's more like designed to make you feel formidable when in all actuality you're just going to get wrecked if an actual legitimate bad guy comes at you. And you can also train jujitsu and you can think you can do things on the ground, but you're training with the nice guys at your gym that are like kind of not really trying to wreck you. And you're going to be fighting in a street where there are no jujitsu rules. Okay. So like on the mats, you might be able to give him a run for his money. In real life, he's going to stand up with you and like slam you into the side of the car or the ground until you fall off them, which I've done to people. And then he's going to wreck you. Right. So
Right.
my guidance is really, get punched in the face, get get slammed, get hit, become a physically formidable person. Understand violence. You can't understand violence without implementing violence. The really cool thing about a lot of these martial arts we're talking about is that you can practice them at pretty intense speeds. You can get punched in the face with that headgear on, and you can simulate murder in jiu-jitsu every day of your life if you want to multiple times during practice, and simulate choking people out, simulate getting choked out, and understand these things because if you are a normal good person living your life and going to work, you have no context for violence. The advantage that bad people and people like myself who've been to war and do these things have on you is they understand how to achieve a level of violence you have never achieved in your life, a real world level of violence. And without having the dojo to help you simulate that, you're going to be way the heck behind the power curve. And that, no matter even if you do have the martial arts background, that is a huge factor. And so understanding violence in biologically is really, 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 really huge.
Yes. Oh, I love everything you just said. I've got to come up with a better phrase to like transition into what I'm going to say, but If you listen to any
No, it's all
episodes,
good.
it's always like, "Wow," and I mean it though, it's a genuine
Yeah,
response. It's just not,
good. I
very
love it.
great.
No, you're awesome at this. I dig it.
Thank you. You as well. Very articulate. And I wanna touch
Thank
on,
you.
what you said. I think the first time this was brought up was episode 20 or 25. It was whatever Craig Douglas was on, and he talked about, um,
Craig
videos
Douglas
he's
is the real deal. I got a call with him later on this week. Might be
really?
coming out for like a third or fourth symposium. I don't know. He's been with us at a few of them
He's
already.
That's amazing. Yes, he's lovely, and he's also one of the very few men in the industry that have been uber
Gentlemen.
appropriate to me as a young female. And I'm not going to go into that here, but I've just been finding out, left and right,
How the
um,
industry, yeah,
how it works. So
he's a
I have so much
gentleman.
respect for him.
Yep,
What'd you
he's
say?
an absolute gentleman. Every time,
Yes.
he's an absolute gentleman. Every time we've
Mhm.
worked with him as a brand, he's one of our favorite guys to work with because he's just like, if you're as a man, study him because he's just
Yes.
like, he's dangerous. He's a gentleman. He has good taste.
Mhm.
When he shows up, he's dressed to the nines. Like, that is an example of a dangerous gentleman, which we all should be. If you're a male, you have a responsibility to be a dangerous gentleman. There's no cheat codes. I don't care if society tells you you're special, as your mommy loves you. Your mommy's always going to love you. That doesn't count when it comes to the world and all this stuff. You
That's
need to
true.
be a dangerous gentleman. Your females need you to be a dangerous gentleman. If you have kids, they're going to need you to be a dangerous gentleman. The dudes in your workplace that don't know they need it until there's an active shooter or a human threat, or when you're at Starbucks and someone does something, all men should be dangerous gentlemen. If not, you're selling yourself short. And it's not even about being so jacked and so tan, even though you should be. But you need to understand your tools, understand how to use them, and understand that the responsibility to stand for goodness and light is going to be on your shoulders as a male. Our society is only as safe as a strong strength for a masculine population. That's just the way the world's always worked.
That's fair. Absolutely. And the tan part though, I wouldn't be able to get behind. You're saying tan, right? Like TAN,
Yeah,
not
yeah,
a
yeah,
10.
yeah. I mean, I'm lucky because I'm black. So, I was born
Yeah.
with it. I was born with melanin privileges. But,
Melanin
yeah, no.
privileges.
And don't
Yeah.
get me wrong, protection too is very much organic to the female experience as well. Like, women
Yeah.
are the most hunted, right? You're at work, your women and children are alone together. It is at that time, it is your wife's responsibility to protect your family while you're away hunting or doing whatever you're doing to bring back, the bread for the family. They must be formidable as well. So it's not like it's just a dude thing. But national security, that's historically generally been a dude thing. So that's why I say, like, I posted a video today with some toxic male walking around, like punching people in the face randomly and flipping tables over. And everyone's just hostage. Like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? A 230-pound dude, athletic. This dude looked really formidable, walking around, beating people up, punching people in the face. No one's doing anything. His girlfriend's like, stop it, please stop. And like, there's people that are just don't know what to do. They're like begging him to stop until another dude is just like, wow, and knocks him out. And it's self-correcting when we have a lot of white blood cells in the body. Protectors are the white blood cells in the body of humanity. So, dudes, man up.
Oh, absolutely. So many shirt ideas I'm gonna get from this episode. Just kidding. Just for real
Just
though.
cut me in. I want 5%, 10%. I want
Are you
10%.
kidding? You'd be the owner of it. I'd just be doing it on the side. But anyway, yeah, I saw
Appreciate
this.
it.
Speaking of, I saw this video. I'm sure you saw it. Of the teacher that was like, what's it called when you?
Yeah.
This is showing how long it's been when you literally jump up and then both feet kick someone. Not a
Jump
Spartan
kick?
kick. What is it?
She was tackled. She was like tackled, like knocked out on contact when she hit the floor. That one in Texas that
Yes,
just happened.
that one. Yes.
Yeah. I posted a tactical protection review on that. And
Okay.
yeah, I talked about sending your kids to school. I talked about thinking about and assessing and questioning and challenging your school's security posture. I talked about the differences between having teachers be armed and the whys and why nots versus having private security take care of the security of the kids on campus, the same way they do for major facilities and organizations all the way up to NASA, right? And banks and bars and clubs, and it's what we do, right? And considerations around that, because you shouldn't be sending your kids to an unsafe place, and the threat doesn't always come from, the other parent or the active shooter. Threats can come from a lot of different places, and anytime you have a body of people around each other, there is a risk component. So, yeah, no, I saw that, and it was really upsetting. And emotional intelligence is at an all-time low in our world, in our country,
Right.
and mental health, all these things. So I think any serious adult can see that security is necessary. I just don't know what the complication is. Shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, no,
It's a
absolutely.
necessity.
I've actually really been wanting someone to come on and talk about school safety. Is that something you've trained a lot of individuals for?
Yeah, we have teams that cover schools, churches, and environments like that, and put together
Okay.
security packages for schools. It's something I'm really passionate about. Also the epidemic of children that are being like harmed and sold in our world is also something I'm also very passionate about, and they're doing some things to fight. But setting up school safety is something I love and believe in, and there are a lot of politics around it. A lot of our strategies have to do with an overt posture, but a lot of our strategies have to do with a covert posture. So no one even knows there's security in those environments where there's more kind of politics around it, and the comfort
Mm.
levels aren't necessarily there. But we still aim to provide a level of protection, that level of protection that's necessary without negatively impacting the social structures there. But schools where there's these helpless people that are put in these environments, and they're depending on us as adults and schools and parents for their safety while they're in those environments, like to provide an environment of safe education. So it's something that's so necessary, and I have a lot of videos out on it, and you can look at these active shooter scenarios, and you'll see a few things. I'll talk a little bit about it. And you see a few things. You see when the law enforcement folks get a hold of these attackers' phones after executing active shooter events. You see things in there in every one of these situations, or when they read their letters, they say, I was going to go here, I was going to go there, but they had armed security, they had police, these people had armed guards. I chose this campus because it wasn't an armed structure, it wasn't a protected structure. When you look at the kids, having instant accountability in the environment. And in that Texas environment, there was a security school safety officer, but he was obese. And I say that as a matter of fact, not as a, I say that as a matter of fact that should be assessed, should be understood, and should be dealt with within the realms of our professional protectors on this planet. You have to be able to add deterrence value to your environment. You should be the type of person that the optics of you lends more credibility to the organization that you're there to protect and represent as well, and your company, whether you're on the private side or the law enforcement side or the military side, right? People are paying you to be able to outperform another human being in a violent encounter. That's one thing you're being paid for. So he was obese, and that I don't think added a lot of deterrence to that environment, and kids, when they see a masculine man in that environment or woman, when they see someone that strikes a healthy amount of consideration, some could say fear, they think twice. And when you're armed, they think 2 or 3 times. And it actually avoids 90% of these situations. It avoids so many of these situations. I have accounts on a school campus where we have ties with federal agencies, and we have a great protocol for pushing information that we get forward as to who's been on campus, and persons of interest and bolos and people that do things that are suspicious. And we have on multiple occasions uncovered terrorist activity or people that are coming to probe and for whatever reason, those campuses, so these are extremely valuable and like necessary things that these campuses should be implementing. And parents, I believe, really need to start asking. And they're making decisions also, not just based on the quality of education, but also on the quality of the security at that facility, because there's just too many case studies to say that it's something that shouldn't be taken so seriously.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you for speaking on that. I have two sisters that are teachers, and um, when that incident happened, we had a call, and I was, of course, freaking out, and I felt it was necessary for me to talk to them about concealed carry, and um, the conversation was a little bit um, strained, to say the least, because one, they were very upset about what happened, and uh, two, they live in very liberal states. So, I'm in Arkansas. I'm in a super
Yeah, you're in
safe.
America.
I'm in America, so it's
Yeah,
very easy to conceal your. There's a "Don't tread on me" sticker like on every car. Here, I saw like three today. Just like someone's license plate was "Don't tread on me," and it was just a
heck yeah,
very
motivating.
right. It was an very eye-opening conversation, to kind of see how they viewed that. So, I mean, if you had any advice for teachers out there who are experiencing this like strain between trying to just do their job, but also having to worry about not only their safety, but the safety of the kids and their what am I trying to say? Their home.
Yeah, I would say, and it kind of goes into the arming the teachers, arming the, how do we protect these places? Um, when it comes to protection, yes, it is the one skill that stands between you and being a victim in many different cases and scenarios. It is the when you need a parachute, all you need is a parachute. That is your responsibility. Don't expect cops to be able to get there in time. Don't expect another human being to be able to get there in time. Um, it is the one thing you need it's something you need to understand in life. And there's a soft skill component that can do so much for you, and a hard skill component that can save your life. But with all of that having been said, uh, the private security or professional level of protection, I believe, is what's really, really important, because these people have the software and they've trained with the hardware. They're coming from a reputable company, to be able to effectively protect. If they're doing their jobs, they are a component that can keep those environments so much safer. Um, and so I think they are a necessary component. Now, as you continue to drill down into it, a teacher in a classroom that's outnumbered by students, if that person believes that it's something that they want to do or understands that it's something that they should do in service of themselves and all the other students, and they're willing to go on the journey to become formidable with that hardware and with becoming an actual protector, I believe that it's appropriate. Ideally, I would hope that all teachers would want to do that, but I know there's so many divergent opinions and temperaments and personalities that that's probably not realistic. However, I believe the safest classroom is a classroom with a teacher who understands that protecting themselves and protecting those kids is within the spectrum of their responsibilities, and is something that they're willing to train, make sacrifices, and honestly become a better human by going on the journey of becoming a protector, right? And so, I think that this fight uh, is going to require parents, but it's also going to require teachers to say, hey, so, school district, principal, superintendent, all those people, what is the security plan at our school? We have had enough situations and scenarios take place in American culture where we know that there can be an active shooter, whether it's a parent that goes off the handle, whether it's a random person that walks on campus, whether it's a terrorist, whether it's a student. We know that these things do and can and will happen this year. So what is your plan? I'm not talking about your politics. Your politics, no one's politics ever stopped. Ever. In fact, most of the diaries and text messages and data that we collect after these active shooter events doesn't even suggest, just look at where they happen. They happen in gun-free zones. So your politics don't matter. Good people are the only ones that follow rules and laws. Bad people are the ones that murder was illegal last time I checked. Running up and knocking your teacher out for taking your Game Boy was illegal last time I checked. Violence is a consequence of the human condition. What is your strategy and what is your plan to keep me safe while I try to just do my job? Like, what is it? Do we have a private security there? Are they going to be making rounds? Are they going to be running open source investigations on students' social media platforms while we're in class so we can preemptively and run offensive security operations in the school? And if the kid needs help, psychological help or help at home or whatever, are people watching to detect that on their social media platforms so we can get ahead of these types of things? Because they always say something on there. They always signal before they do it in one way or another. And there are patterns and behaviors and characteristics we can tease out to understand who's at risk, who's a person of interest, who's at risk, who might need some help, who might need some special attention, who might need a knock and talk before these things even happen when the job's being done effectively and correctly. Or is there someone walking around so that these students know there's instant accountability on this campus, and there's also instant protection on this campus? Is there someone walking around to input those things into the social spectrum and culture of our school? Or are we just hoping that it doesn't happen to us? Are we just hoping? Or are your politics somehow going to save us? Is whoever going to send a protection detail down here into our gun-free zone to protect us? And so those are questions I think parents and teachers really need to spearhead in order to help people who do protect environments and people every single day be able to get in there and do what they do for some of the most helpless and precious individuals in our world, our children, and people wanting to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. I like how you kind of led with, the least you can do is start a conversation and talk to your supervisors and bosses about the protection plan, not necessarily like having a whole bug out rig in you know, your craft closet, but just starting with talking.
Or your car.
Or your car. Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. So thank you so much for touching on that, even though, you said it so much. Yeah, thank you. I'm going to tell my sisters to listen to this. Absolutely. What were you going to say?
Good. Yeah, and if you need help, hit me up. Hit me up. This is something we do, consultation, and we implement strategies, and we help. We're on multiple campuses, and we can do it as overt or covert as you guys would like. But
okay.
Yeah, the conversation's where it starts, but it can't be where it ends. And ask people, what would you do? Like, I don't have a crystal ball. You don't have a crystal ball. What would you do if tomorrow someone did this? What would you do if someone's getting shot tonight? Okay, what would you do if someone kicks in your front door? Right now, as we speak, there are hundreds of violent encounters happening, one every 2 to 3 seconds. So, minutes. So the people that are the best victims are the ones that just think it's never going to happen to them.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. That makes me think of, sorry.
And I hope it doesn't. Sorry. I hope it never happens to anybody.
Absolutely. No. Yeah, you're not saying that you hope it does. Or even like, yeah, I know what you're saying. Be prepared, and it's not the same as being paranoid and going in a different direction from that. But yes, thank you so much for talking about that. So do you have a facility where you train people, or do you have a central facility?
Couple. Mm-hmm.
A couple.
Okay. And just one thing to mention on what we're talking about too. So like, if you're just like ideologically opposed to, all the guns and the protection and all this stuff, just consider competence eradicates fear. So when you go out and learn how to shoot, or if you have a plan in place, you'll have more peace. Whether it's an emergency management plan, whether it is learning to use a firearm, if we fear what we don't know and what we don't understand, maybe you have trauma in your background where someone shot themselves on accident or someone you love was killed by gun violence. Like, these things are understandable, but they are so emotional. And I have a master's in psychology, and I can tell you those things can be changed, and that if you work through those things, you're going to be a healthier, more confident, more empowered, and more powerful human being. And that's like awesome. Like, don't allow the fear or even I hate violence. I went to war. You don't hate war as much as I hate war. I hate war. And then if you understand like the drivers and finances and who's benefiting and all these things. I understand all that. But unfortunately, while there are still evil people on this planet, we must be good at war. We must be good at using these tools to protect our homes and our country and our societies and our environments. And that's why it's necessary. And that's why it's relevant. Unfortunately, our emblem, one of the emblems I made, it has a warrior, but there's a tear in his eye because he doesn't want to do violence, but he knows that he must in order to protect those behind him. And he's fueled by love. And so I've been in environments where the guys laying on the floor afterwards, we're just guys with different ideas from different walks of life, and we didn't necessarily, we didn't hate each other, but this is just the way the world brought us together. But I had to do what I had to do because I needed to go home, and they stood in the way of that. And it was unfortunate. It's still sad, but it is what it is. And this is life. That crackhead that jumps you on your way to your car, like now the world's brought you together in that place, but you need to make sure you go home to your family. So that's how I'd approach that. Into facilities. Yes, we do our hard skills intensives, our protector symposium in Tucson, Arizona at a place we call the farm. That's what we'll call it because it was a farm. That's all I'll tell you about it. We got a track there. We've got multiple shooting ranges there with vehicles to shoot in and around and all the stuff. We have a fleet of Crown Vics. They're all caged up. You'll see them on my social media platforms where we teach you how to car fight. And we set up a vehicle roadblock and you literally ram through it. And we literally put you in a vehicle and we literally flip you over and you literally get out and understand how to set up security and roll safely and everything inside of a vehicle. We have houses that we use for shoot houses and it's super dope. And then in Cali, we do a lot of training in California for the executive protection immersion course. And for that, we train out in the real world. You go down and you do executive protection details in Los Angeles with me and the instructors. We operate in the field together. And then we use another facility out here in LA, in Santa Ana, for shoot houses and things like that, for shoot house operations and civilian protector classes and things like that.
That's incredible. Do you also travel and teach?
I'm starting to get invites, and we're starting to really consider that. Most of our training though right now is Arizona and California, but 100% open to invites, 100% open to private lessons, 100% open to all those things as an organization. Me personally, it's just, it's got to be worth like all the time. Like I have to stop all the operations and all the other things in order to actually be there teaching you. So it depends on what you're really looking for. But some of the best instructors in the game. So we're looking at doing some international teaching right now as well, which is really exciting.
Yeah, that is exciting. Amazing. You probably aren't allowed to say much about it, but if you want to talk about it, you're welcome to.
Just there's some countries where some good people need good training. There's situations, as you guys know, with martyrs and situations where there are just so many more well-trained bad people than good people. And so, kind of like, going in and training the good people to be able to do what they need to do to survive is something we're really passionate about. So we're in talks with a few organizations that are in those countries to help equip good people to be able to really stand up and defend themselves, protect themselves, escape and evade, and things like that.
That's incredible. Yeah. Well, good luck with that. I'm excited to hear more about it as you take that on.
Yes.
When it comes to, I just lost my train of thought completely. 100%. Did you see that happen? It's like it just got
It's all good.
the file ejected from my brain.
Yeah, well, it's tough. It's tough when you're listening and you're having an engaging conversation. And I know this from experience. And you're engaged in the conversation. And then this pause happens where you're supposed to ask another question. And then you're like, dude, I was totally in. It's I'm not where are my notes? What was I doing with my life?
Right.
And it's
Absolutely.
I'm supposed to ask a question, but that I was listening. Yeah, I completely get it.
Yes, exactly. And I appreciate the flow of conversation. This episode has gone by so quickly. I I felt so engaged. And I'm not saying anything negative about past episodes. Oftentimes it's my like current like it's my mental state once that starts. So, but right now I'm just like really feeling the flow and I'm learning so much. But I did just remember. So
Awesome.
I know before we hit record, I told you a little bit about my experience getting my NRA instruction license or certification a couple weeks ago, and I would say all but one guy in there was getting theirs for private security, some private security reason. And I saw like a lot of really bad things when we went to go do our shooting qualification. Um, and as far as it as far as it goes with like private security, um, what would you say like businesses and corporations should look for when they're hiring? And I know I'm sure we won't get a lot of people, that need to hear that, but I'm just curious what you have to say about that.
That's a really, I'm glad you asked. Like, I should talk about
Hey.
this on my podcast. No, I'm glad you asked. And so the private security, um, the private security industry is largely unregulated. So it's still like the Wild West. So you
Mhm.
get what you pay for, and it can go, like, I mean, like I said, I got friends that are doing things on the private security side for NASA, and I got friends that are, and there's private security dudes at the mall right now. So when someone says private security, some people think Paul Blart, and other people are thinking Jason Bourne, right? And the reality is they're all in there, right? And so there's a huge spectrum of individuals. There's something else I would say about the range itself, and like the people that are NRA instructors, and I'm nothing against being an NRA instructor, but like the gun store guy, the cargo pants, the bright red shirt, like
Oh
there's
yeah,
something to be said for like who you run into in these environments, that want to be
absolutely.
instructors and all this stuff. Um, and I honestly avoid a lot of these environments because there are a lot of how do I say, there's a lot of pretenders. There's a lot of people that are
Mm.
like, if I get this title, I'll be legit. No, you should just put in the work and like be good and don't suck, and you'll be legit. So that's what people don't want to do. So that's why my brand is, it's more than just a job, it's a lifestyle, because it's all the things you do when you're not at work that make it so you can perform while you are at work. And so when it comes to hiring private security, yes, corporations should look at the company. Do they have a training pipeline? How in depth is that training pipeline? Do they have ongoing quals? And do they have programs to bring guys up to standard? If they fall below those standards, what standard are they maintaining? For Bravo Research Group, we're calling every quarter. That's more than local law enforcement. And we're shooting federal, local law enforcement, and CCW calls and military calls. So they're going through an FBI call, they're going through LAPD call, LA County Sheriff's call, a few local CCW calls, and they're going through the Marine Corps pistol call. We're going to start doing the Secret Service call as well. So this is the level of the professional that we're bringing to the game. They're also doing medical quarterly as well. And so they have their stop the bleed, they have their TECC, first aid, AED, and they're not just staying qualled. You get qualled once for these medical certs, and you're good for 2 years. We all know that's like not enough. Like, when's the last
Right.
time you really did the thing, man? And the other problem with private security is you get a guy who was like, oh yeah, I was Navy SEALs, or I was prior law enforcement or prior military, and then people want to just hire him, and it's like, when's the last time this guy did anything, like proved himself, like could actually do it, and like actually did have to, put in a tension needle thorax, or did have to do something like, when's the last time that this guy actually did get tested at his level of efficacy with a pistol and all these different things, right? So
Right.
the hard skills are perishable. And so guys, just because they have backgrounds, they get these jobs, and then you have guys on the job and these things haven't been addressed. And then you get into a force encounter, and then that can become a whole another issue for the company when it comes to what level are you keeping your agents at, right? And there's liability around taking those things on as a company instead of just letting the state dictate that level of confidence. But anyways, so when corporations are looking at companies, the sad thing is what they're generally looking at is, not sad thing, but just the reality of the situation is they're looking at um, how fiscally responsible is it to take on the security. Security is a major expense that produces Some would say produces nothing. So the biggest problem we have is we get in there, we do our job, security issues recede and don't happen. And then the civilians, just like if you're like starting to go into a war, like we're going to war because they bombed the Twin Towers. And then like 10 minutes later, everyone's like, why are we at war again? Like, why are we even here? Like, we should just not, like, you have to keep posting, never forget, like forever. And so that people remember, like, hey, like, it's like a thing that started this. So
Right.
when you do a good job at private security, there are no problems. It is quiet. The reality is that peace and that safety allows you to execute on your mission effectively, right? That's what your company needs, without harm to your reputation and the safety of your employees or the safety of the patrons that utilize your campus or whatever it is. Or as an executive protection agent, my guys supply a safe environment for that VIP to do their mission in life. They don't have to think about their safety. They don't have to think about their security. We also handle safe transport. We also handle so many things that just really empower that individual to execute on their mission. That's why the symbol for my company, Bravo Research Group, is a bee that looks like it's on a periodic chart, because we're one component of that person or that organization's world on the spectrum of all the different components on the periodic chart that makes their thing work, that makes it so their thing can work. So those are kind of the concerns and the considerations, and the way private security can help an organization achieve its goals is by creating that safe environment, and clearing the path and hedging against liability of dealing with security related incidents, and empowering people to just do their job. Like a teacher can just do their job now, right? And a VIP can just do what it is they love, and private security amplifies that capability. But when you're looking at a company, ask them if they have a training pipeline, ask them how current they keep their guys on their hard skills, and understand really the quality of their manpower beyond just the backgrounds of the people that they're employing in service to you. And that's how you know if these guys are really as advertised.
Incredible. Incredible. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, it's an awesome inside scoop that I like you said at the very start, um it's not like talked about enough. I keep forgetting where I'm
Yeah,
going with this. I'm just
it's all
very
good.
taken with what you said. What were we gonna say?
Yeah, no, it's more than just a job. It's a lifestyle. Like I
Yeah,
always say, um, it's what these guys are doing when they're not at work. It's what these guys are, the standard they're required to perform at by the company that makes them really valuable. And that's really what ends up making the difference, whether your guy can perform or not, um, on all the spectrum, on all the levels.
absolutely. Yeah, I've been noticing now that I took that class with them, and I didn't get to know them very well. I guess I learned the most about them at the range, but I actually taught one of the girls how to shoot, and she received her her instructor's qualification the next day. So it was really scary to see. But um, and lately, I know, trust me, I know. I had to call one of my friends after and
God bless them.
rant about it. She was like, "I told you." She's like, "That's just how those
Yeah,
classes are. It's hit or miss." And
that's how
um,
those classes are.
unfortunately, and a lot of people have been commenting on my post. All I did was post that I passed, that I got my certification, and I even put my caption, "Don't come at me," because this isn't the only instructor's like certification or even training I'm doing. It's just nationally recognized. So I went ahead and checked that box. And I
Yep.
still got so many comments saying like, "Oh God, please don't let NRA be the only thing you use." So it was kind of
Yep.
funny. And yeah.
And something to be said on that is just on the, I mean, competitive shooting. Like, how do you get
Mhm.
good? Like, yeah, the dry firing, that's where it's at. But like, competitive shooting is such an amazing tool. Like since I've been competitive shooting, I can wreck 90% of the tactical guys that we run into, because they're not continually shooting non-standard problems as fast and accurately as they can for like a 30 round rip. So
Right.
um, when you get into that world, you're like, it's another dojo. So you're going to the
Mhm.
to the shoot being like, well, I'm like kind of decent. Then you go hang out with all the mortals at a range, and you're like, oh, wait, guys, like like you guys need
Yeah.
to like get back to the dojo, because what you get out of it shooting every weekend or whenever there's a match, and you get so much from it. So
Absolutely.
yeah, a lot of those guys, and then they'll be like, well, competitive shooting will get you killed. And it's like, I take a guy that can freaking run a gun, man, over the guy that's, has false confidence in his tactics and goes to one or two tactical courses a year, or a once upon a time guy. So,
Yes.
there's a lot more to be said on it. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm a combat veteran. I understand. But when we're talking about continuing to cultivate that skill set, I see few things as cost effective and as better methods to maintain your skills and lethality and accuracy and speed, and actually to make it get better and better than competitive shooting on the weekends. You know,
Yeah. Absolutely. It is a lot of fun. It also gets me outside. That's something I didn't realize I was going to love about it. But I've spent so much time outside just because of competitive shooting matches and training with my coach. And it's overall been such a good experience, aside from just exponentially improving my shooting skills. I got to a point where I was like, okay, I've got to get better. Like, I can't just chill here anymore. I'm talking about concealed carry, but I don't even know like my draw speed. I don't know what I would do if I had to move and shoot. I don't know what I would have to do if I had to draw from retention, with someone like reaching for my gun. Like, not that I would draw then. Sorry, let me clarify. But like
but
after
yeah, but these are
CQB,
considerations.
yes, absolutely. Every time I take a class or work with my private instructor, I just learn more about what else I need to learn. You know what I mean? It's just this
Yeah,
constant, um, this very steep learning curve that will probably just stick around for a long time. Yeah, I'm excited
good.
to
I
instruct,
hope
but
it
I have a
does.
lot to
I'm
learn
still.
first. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Same here, always, 100%.
yes, it's
Always
a
learning.
good lens to view life through. Yeah. Well, we're at about time. Before we go, though, is there anything you'd like to send the listeners off with, or anything you would like to talk about before we go?
Um, I would say, we covered a lot of information.
Yeah.
Um, but I think the nuts and bolts really come down to personal protection is your responsibility. Yes, there are professionals. Yes, they're getting paid to do it. But when an individual is hunting you, which, especially if you're a female, they are. You have the world's most sought after, most important natural resource in the world, in the universe, between your legs. It's this where it's at. It's a fact, statistically as well. When that person finds you or tries to find you or is assessing you or whatever, hopefully nothing ever happens, but we don't have a crystal ball. Um, it is a personal error, I think, to outsource your protection, because good people, good men are less and less, and good men will be hard, can may not be there. Good women, good people are less and less, and they may not be there. And it's beyond negligent. It's just ignorant to think that you'll always be able to depend on someone to outsource your personal protection. Um, I think that's a big, big takeaway. I think protecting our kids is a really big priority. And I think that more adults need to start thoughtfully and not aggressively, but kindly and thoughtfully asking and inquiring of the bodies that, govern schools and that employ them and that they send their kids off to. It's just a responsible question. Hey, it looks like you guys have an awesome educational pipeline here, which these days ain't always the case, but maybe the ones you're talking to do. What are you guys' thoughts on security? Like, what's your security posture here? What if there is an active shooter or a police scenario that takes place in the neighborhood nearby? We respond to that all the time in my world. Like, how do you guys do it? And seeing if their responses are good enough for you to feel safe to send your most important people in your family out to. Uh, and then finally, I'd say, like, value the soft skills, learn the soft skills, find people that can teach you the soft skills like myself. Um, and if you're here, you're in the right place. That means you're at some point in your journey. So continue. And, and that's what makes all the difference. Be willing to, focus on progress over perfection. And before you know it, you'll be pretty tight.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. It's very
Yeah.
encouraging to me as well, as someone who's like in the very beginning of her journey. Even though I might be ahead of others, I still see myself like as like a newbie in this field. So yeah, thank you so much for your kind words and for sharing your experiences. I'm sure some of them are harder to recount than others. So thank you for going down your memory lane with us as well. And for anyone interested in training with Byron or looking at his content, you can access his information in the show notes, which are the notes below the title. For exclusive video content with guest speakers, you can become a Patreon. You'll receive a thank you note and podcast stickers, along with more exclusive
Mm.
content. If you are know any firearm owners that are in a crisis, or you yourself are dealing with a crisis, Hold My Guns is an organization that um, helps people in times of need by holding their firearms for them at a licensed location. I will get better at saying that in the future, but for now, there's my little spiel. They've been on the podcast before. You can visit She Shield on Instagram and TikTok at She Shield Pod for show updates, pictures of our guest speakers, and podcast highlights. A special thank you to Sagetta Gear, the official sponsor of She Shield. For concealed carry gear and duty gear, you can use code She Shield 10 for 10% off your Sagetta Gear order. If you like the pod, you can help by liking, subscribing, and leaving a review wherever you are listening now. Thank you for listening, and in the meantime, stay safe and stay vigilant.